Skyward Sword is an anomaly. It was released during a time where the tried and true Zelda formula had been exhausted and reaching a point where it felt too samey. Conversely, it also introduced a new twist on the formula, with a one-to-one motion way of handling combat which was novel but wasn't perfect. I actually only played the Switch version with a Pro controller, so I didn't get to experience the motion-controlled method of combat that mimicked the original Wii release. With that being said, by the time I finished the game, I found the combat to be better than I feel most give it credit for, despite its problems. On the one hand, the enemy designs do not iterate enough to sustain a traditional difficulty curve or variety throughout the course of the game. The Bokoblins, being the most common enemy type, only get electricity buffs that shock the player but keep the same guard. Then there's the skeleton guys who get more weapons to guard with, and minus a few others, that's really it. On the other hand, I do think that the bosses are enjoyable and really carry the game in some respects. The highlights being Koloktos and the final fights with Girahim and Demise. I enjoyed having to cut at specific angles to battle Girahim, and Koloktos is probably the best boss in the game for the fact that it's a dynamic fight where you repeatedly tear it apart. Not only are the bosses great, but I do find that over time I came to enjoy this combat system because it enabled a greater sense of oneness with Link and his actions. Unfortunately, while the bosses get better as the game goes on, the game itself does not. The game repeats content more than any other Zelda game. The same locations get used many times, sometimes with forced sections that halt all narrative or gameplay progression. The woods and volcano being the worst. All I wanted to do was get to the next plot point, but I was forced through yet another boring collectathon and a stealth section where I was frustrated that I couldn't use all my items. The desert is the best of these reuse areas, aesthetically and mechanically. The time shift stones were my favorite new idea introduced to the game, for the changes they add to the gameplay and visuals. Overall, Skyward Sword is a decent adventure that starts strong but unfortunately dips as it continues on.